what are you doing here? Hi YouTube and welcome to another video. In this one, we're making this natural vegetable tan leather purse that I call Cherry because of its color and shape. Now it took me around 8 hours to complete. It's fairly simple, very beginner friendly. So if you want to make this purse yourself, there will be a link in the video description below for the PDF pattern. Of course, the purse itself in any color is available on my website that is also linked in the video below. Now before we proceed with building this purse, don't forget to like or dislike this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like that. And yeah, without further ado, let's go build this purse right here. Okay, so to start, we will need the pieces to cut out of the leather, and there are in total 4 pieces. Well, we will need 2 of these and 1 of each of these pieces. Yeah, so we will be using natural vegetable tan leather, which has not been prepared in any way. And the thickness of it is around 1.4 millimeters. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know what it is in ounces. I'm too lazy to count, but yeah, in millimeters, it's 1.3, 1.4. So next step, what we have to do is to trace everything on leather. As you can see, I've already started doing that. Cut it all out, and yeah, I'll come back to you after I've done that. Alrighty, now that everything is cut out, we will need to leave these 3 pieces for a little bit later, and we will continue on skiving off the edges of this side panel. So we will need a very flat surface, of course, skiving tool, and we will be skiving off everything on these sides here and on the other side as well, leaving, at least trying to leave this side not skived, because the side panel here will actually go behind the front panel, just like that. And this will create us a smaller gap between these 2 pieces and will help us glue them and stitch them together a little bit more firmly, and also removing all of that bulk on the side. Well, basically this will help us, well, first of all, remove the bulk, of course, and secondly, it'll feel a little bit nicer. All right, so I've skived off the edges. Now another thing that I like to do using this skiving tool as well, I like to go around the skived edges and just remove all of the unnecessary hairs of the leather, because if you do not do that, it might result in very roundish corners, and if you remove the extra hair, it looks a little bit nicer. So yeah, after you do that, the remaining pieces that we left off for a little bit later, we have to sand the edges just to make it nice, round, and simple. So I will be using 800, 1500, and 200 grit sandpaper, and yeah, I'll just go around all of these sides here and make them nice and even. And afterwards, after I've done that, I'll come back to you and we'll move further. Only a few steps left before we proceed to applying oil and dye. So now that your sides and corners and roundabouts and stuff like that is nice and even, nice and flat, we move on to edge beveling. So all of the pieces except, of course, this one, because it's really thin, you won't be able to do anything with this thing because it's too thick for a skived leather edge like this. So we put this aside, and the rest of the pieces we need to actually bevel the edges. Now that the edges are finished, Next thing we will be using, I don't think you can see, but this is neat's food oil. It's just basically fat from the cow. And we'll be applying it to all of the pieces that you can see here. Make sure that you apply a good amount, because especially if you are dyeing the leather after applying the oil, if you're not and your leather is already prepared, you can just basically use a thin layer of this oil. It will be never too much of it. It'll actually give you another good weathering prevention, basically, and rejuvenate the leather that you're working with. But yeah, if you're doing anything like me, using natural vegetable tanned leather which is not prepared in any way, make sure to use enough of this oil, because yeah, we will be adding 2 layers of dye, one today and one tomorrow. We will need to wait 1 day color to penetrate the leather, and then we will apply a second coat of dye tomorrow and proceed with the build. So yeah, let's apply the oil and I'll come back to you when it's time to actually dye the leather already. Now that the oil is applied, time to apply the first coat of dye. Normally I would only dye it with one color, but today I've decided to try something out and maybe invent another color. So basically I've landed on mahogany and red. I don't know if you can see it. Well, you can see red here. So yeah, we will try to mix them up. I've done a little bit of an experiment beforehand, and it turns out to be a very saturated red with a hue of brown. It's an interesting color, so I thought, why not try mixing them up and see what happens. So I've added, I've at least tried adding 50-50 of both colors into the bucket here. So yeah, let's soak this thing up and see what happens when we apply it to the leather. So let's take this and go for it, I guess. I mean, as you can see, it's turning out to be quite red, but that's because it's only the first layer. The front is finished. This is the first coat. It looks kind of ugly now, but tomorrow is gonna be a little bit better. Now, of course, we needn't to forget to dye the back of it and the sides, of course. Now, of course, it's a, of course, of course it's a personal preference, but I like to dye both sides of the leather and also the very edges, if I'm not applying any other color to the edges. In this case, we're not gonna be applying it since I don't really want any colors of the edge dye that I have, and I only have 2, which is black and dark brown. So yeah, they don't really go together. So yeah, apply the dye to the back, leave it dry, and I will see you tomorrow. So this is the next day, and here is the result. I don't know if you can see it actually, but yeah, it doesn't look too good right now. It looks kind of red. So we should now apply the second coat. I've already mixed up the dye. I've added a little bit more mahogany this time, just to give it a little bit more of that brownness. So let's apply the dye and let's see what kind of color we should get out of it. All right, so while we wait for the leather to dry, we'll move on to the next step, which we will be adding this thing, this clip-on, for the leather to, when it folds, to secure itself. And the back panel will have this interesting metal thing that helps it stay even and flat to the surface of the leather. So since we don't have any lining, we won't be adding it. I've cut out a piece of thin leather. This is about 1.1 millimeter, but we will be thinning it out with the sanding paper. After we apply the lock, we'll need to add this to the back side. over here. This is the back side. And then on top of this, we will glue this little piece of leather. So yeah, before we actually do any sanding, I'll dye the back of it. Then I'll sand the front. And yeah, I think it will be time to add this lock. So now that this piece has been dyed, we need to find the center on this piece over here. This will be the front of the purse. So we need to find the center from the top, and from the top we have around 16 centimeters. So the middle will be about 8. So we see that this is the middle, right? And then we mark it down. The length of this is about 15 centimeters. So the first point that's gonna have a hole is 7.5. And the second one is about 8.5. There we go. So we have 2 holes to punch. I mean, you can see it. And then what we do, according to this part over here, we just simply make a few cuts. So essentially I'm just making an X or a plus, we may say, and just yeah, getting this piece through like this. Then we just simply attach this side, and bend these 2 metal parts like so. So essentially what we have is really simple. We make a few holes, get this part through, and make sure that it's straight, even, and in the middle. And the back side looks like so. And then afterwards, we just glue this part on to hide that metal part. This part's hidden and done. Now we can move on to Tokonol. So we'll be applying Tokonol to all of the edges, preparing the edges for assembly, we may say. So we'll be applying Tokonol to this part, these 2, and the top parts of the side panel. So Tokonol, and of course burnishing. Alright, so now that your edges are nice and shiny and soft, not soft, but like very even, only thing left to do, and this is optional actually, but since the leather is a little bit stiff and I want it to be quite a bit softer, I will be applying 1 more coat of this thing, neatswood oil. This will soften the leather, and yeah, it'll give a little bit of a better feel when touching it after it's finished. Time to add the second part of the rivet, or whatever you call it. So the way we measure the middle of the top part of this flap is we measure the center from this side to this side, basically from this pear shape. We take the middle, take a ruler. It doesn't have to be like a millimeter to millimeter, but at least somewhat even. So from this side to this side, it's 16 centimeters. So I know that the middle is at 8. And then we just eyeball it. Get a little bit lower if we want, just to see if it's nice and straight. Then we can do something like this. Just going straight with our ruler. And we know approximately where the center of the top part is. And I know for a fact that I am actually at the middle. So we will now need to mark where we'll add the holes, like so. That's 1, that's 2, All right, so now we need to punch through the holes here and just simply attach this rivet to the top part. This is 3 millimeters wide. Now, when it comes to the back straps, it'll go something like this, like so, and it will be attached to the side panel. Let me show you how. It'll be attached to the side panel something like so, like this. So we will need to make holes on this side, of course, and make holes on the little flap here as well. So how do we do that? We need to measure its full length, and I know for a fact that it's 7 centimeters. Now we need to find the center, and I know that it's 3.5. From there, we leave about 5 millimeters to each side, because that's gonna be the part where the D-rings will go. So we can mark. I know for a fact now that this the middle is 3.5, so 5 millimeters to one side is 4 centimeters. We mark it down, and to the other side it's 3 centimeters on the ruler, like this. Now we do it for the same on the other side, and then we just trace it around like this. Now you can do this a few different ways. If you have rivets and you would like to just staple it down, I don't know if it's a right way to say it, but yeah, you can use rivets instead of stitching and making extra holes on the side attachments. But this time I've decided to stitch it up, and yeah, there we go. Now this is how it looks, and where we marked, we'll be making holes. Okay, now that we have the holes ready, like this, the way we measure where these side rivet holders will go on the side panel is really simple, actually. We just need to line it up with the very edge of the side panel, make sure it's nice and flat, and also eyeball the middle. So I know that the middle should be somewhere around here, like this, right? Okay, make sure the part is even, like that. And we just take a scratch awl and mark where the holes will go. Like, please move, thank you very much, like this. There we go. Now only thing left to do is to mark out the holes. It's fairly simple, honestly. So, I mean, if you're not comfortable just starting from 2 holes going down, and you're afraid that you're gonna mess it up and it's not gonna be straight and even, you can use the same side panel here and just mark out the rest of the holes. But since I know that I'm doing this straight, I'll just mark it like that, like so. Now I can double check. I know that it's straight, and just punch it through like that. All right, so do holes on this side, do holes on that side, and stitch it up. Alrighty, so we have attached the side flops, the side whatevers. A few things left to do actually before we finish. First things first, of course, we need to prepare the holes on the sides here, and of course here and here. The only thing that we have to make sure is that both pieces, well, not both, but all pieces, all 3 pieces have an even amount of holes. So after we do holes on this side panel here, we need to count them, and of course do the same for these 2 pieces here. So I've done all of the holing. It has 102 holes each. Each part has 102 holes. So now, only thing left to do is to stitch everything up. Now I'll mention a few things before proceeding with it. As I've mentioned before, this part will go inside, like so. Of course, going round, Then we stitch this part up, then we attach this one. So technically there will be two stitching parts. Now another thing, how to know how much thread do we need? Usually what I like to do, if there are a few parts to stitching up a product, and there's, for example, a straight line, I tend to count 3 times the length. So let's say that's 1, that's 2, and here we have 3. And we can add a little bit extra, like a half or something. So technically it's 3.5 of the length that we're working for. So this amount of thread should be enough for us to stitch these 2 pieces together. And of course I will prepare another part of string for the back panel. The only thing left to do is to attach the back part, but the front turned out pretty nice, I would say. The corners and everything, the top part looks pretty nice as well. The sides, yeah, I think it's pretty. It's cool. Okay, so last thing left to do, attach the back part, and the purse should look something like this. All right, here it is, the cherry purse. It turned out quite nice, I would say. Now, as I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's super easy, very beginner friendly. Yeah, it took me around 8 hours in total to complete. The biggest hassle was to stitch the back panel, since the front panel was kind of in the way when you're actually halfway through to the end. But yeah, let's attach these rivets over here. And while I'm doing that, I'll ask you to like the video or dislike the video. It doesn't really matter as long as you're pressing that button. And yeah, if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel to see more of it. But in any case, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on another one.